Do you want to make a quick and easy pouch to keep a book all snug and safe in? It's perfect for stopping pages getting crumpled in a bag or busy drawer, or for making book gifting even more fun.
Hi, I'm Linda from Sew & Be Fabrics. Let's have a go at sewing it together.
This project is so easy you don't even need a pattern, so I'm just grabbing the gorgeous fabric and going for it. I've cut out 4 cotton rectangles, 28 centimetres tall by 18 centimetres wide, which is about 11 by 7 inches. I've got 2 for the outer layer and 2 for the lining on the inside. I've made a little square template, 3 centimetres by 3 centimetres. That's about 1 1/4 inches. I've clipped the little square templates to the fabric while I trim, keeping the fabric fairly flat as I go. It doesn't need to be perfect. And I'm going to cut that off all the bottom corners, 2 on each rectangle. That's it, pattern done.
Okay, on to my favourite bit now. Let's start sewing.
I've got my 2 pieces of lining fabric here with the pretty sides of the fabric facing together, and all I need to do is sew a nice straight stitch down the long side. I'm going to do a quick little back stitch at the start and the end of each bit to keep these stitches firmly in place. I'm skipping past that cutout square because I'll be using that to shape the bottom later, then sewing all along the bottom. Again, skipping the square at the other bottom corner, then all the way back up that other long side, leaving the top part open. I like to make my projects nice and durable, so to stop the edges from fraying I'm just whizzing around again, but this time with a quick zigzag stitch just inside the seam allowance. You could use an overcast foot to sew right over the fabric edge if you prefer, or you could use some pinking shears to trim the edges and reduce how much of the cotton can fray that way instead.
And then we just do that again for the other one.
So this time I have my outer fabric paired up right sides together, exactly the same as before, just stitching down both sides and along the bottom. I just use the same fabric print for all of my pieces to make it super quick to cut out and stitch up. But if you want to make yours much more full of fun, you could always mix up some different fabrics together or jazz up the front with some embroidery, appliques or trim, or you could even add a front pocket for a pen or tiny treasures, then just stitch it up afterwards like this. Again, I'm just finishing those raw edges off with that zigzag stitch along the same sides, avoiding those cutout squares. Those 3 centimetre cutouts are perfect for making enough room inside for chunky novels, but if you're popping a smaller book or journal in there, then 1 to 2 centimetre square cutouts might give you a neater fit, or you could scale the whole pattern up or down for different size books. Let's sort those corners now. Here's the lining. Can you see how I'm pulling the fabric apart at those inner corners? Pulling it out in the opposite direction to how it likes to sit when it's flat. I want to match the direction of this bottom seam here when I make up the corner on the other side, and that'll give it a much crisper finish. It pulls that corner right out into a straight line across the bottom here. Once that corner's done too, I'm doing exactly the same for the outer layer. This is called a box corner, and it's what helps to give the bottom of the pouch that roomy shape. Then I can just sew straight across all those corners. I like to chain stitch them all together, just snipping the threads as I go. And you guessed it, I'll be following that up with a zigzag stitch afterwards too.
Easy enough so far, right?
So now I have 2 pouch shapes and I want to join them together. To do that, I'm turning the outer fabric the right side out, but leaving the lining piece inside out. Then I'm putting the outer layer inside the lining layer. I like to line up the side seams first and clip them together, and then I know everything else will just pull into place. I'll be keeping the book inside with an elastic looping button closure at the top, so I'm finding the middle at the back, and that's where I'll be placing my band. I'm using a little hair elastic for mine because it's pretty and colourful and it's super simple to just stitch in place. But hair elastics tend to have a weak point where they're joined together, so I look for that part and make sure that it's sticking out at the top here.
Let's sew the top bit next.
All I need to do is to sew a straight stitch around the top to join it together. When I get to that back middle point where I want the elastic loop to go, I'm just making sure that I've got that band positioned with the sides not too far apart. I want about 2/3 of the band poking through to the inside, because that'll be the amount on the outside in a minute, so I want plenty sticking out to be able to loop over my button. I'm doing a little extra back stitch when I get to that spot because I want to be sure it's going to hold firm even when it's being pulled around. Then when it's all done, there'll be no strain on that weak spot when it's being used, so it'll stay pingy perfect for much longer. I'm stopping sewing about 5 centimetres or a couple of inches before I get back around to the start. Then I'll leave a hole that'll be easy to turn through in a moment.
Now we need to turn it the other way round.
I like using long nose pliers to help me turn through a hole. I can pop them right inside and grab the far side of the fabric and just ease it out through the hole. Then all I need to do is give it a gentle wiggle and a jiggle and it comes through. Going gently like this also means I'm less likely to pull the hole out of shape. It'll look a bit funny at this point with both pouches joined in the middle, but look, if I take my lining and poke it inside the outer layer, it soon looks right again. See how much more pouch-shaped it's looking now?
I love it when it starts all taking shape as quickly as this.
I'm just folding those raw edges from the turning hole back inside on themselves so it folds back to line up with the seam. Then I'm pressing that top edge in place with the iron. I'm making sure that seam is right at the top all the way round and then it'll all stay put as I stitch over it. I'm sewing a bit closer to the edge than I did for my seam to top stitch all the way round the top of this book pouch. Again, just another nice easy straight line. Not only will that sew up the opening, but it'll also stop the lining and the outer fabric from shifting around, so it'll help to give it a lovely neat look. I like to pop off the front of my sewing machine for this part so I can use the free arm function. That means I can just slide the top of this book cover right around it like it's a sleeve. I find it much easier to keep everything lined up as I sew if I do it like this. I like to trim that starting thread end before I get back to it, so I can't get that caught up in my stitching. There, then that's that bit done. Just the button left now. I like to pull the elastic forward to see where it naturally lines up at the front. This is the perfect spot to put that button. I'm using a shank back button, so I've got to stitch it on by hand. I'm starting by sewing a couple of stitches and knotting them in position to secure it, then trimming away that thread tail before I slide on my button.
Now it can be a bit of a faff, but
I think the extra time hand sewing a decorative button makes it more of a feature than just a closure. Don't you think this pretty flower button really adds a bit more pop to it all? Plus, a chunkier button makes it less likely that the elastic can slip off easily, so it'll keep that book even safer inside. If the elastic's too loose, it won't stay closed. If it's too tight, it's going to be a pain to open. So if I pop it here, then once the book's inside, it'll stretch it just about right to keep it perfectly in place. I've got my thread doubled up as I'm sewing this, so I can add double the thread strength into every stitch. That makes it quicker to sew and also super sturdy. When I'm sewing on shank-style buttons, I like to finish them off by looping the thread all the way around the button and pulling the needle through the fabric and back on itself to knot it a couple of times. That way, all the thread ends that are holding the button in place are wrapped up, so the individual strands are less likely to get rubbed and frayed, so that button won't be pulled off as easily. A quick snip at the end and it's done. All ready to hide a chunky adventure book safely inside for a bus ride, or maybe to pop a little notebook in, ready to jot down more sewing ideas whenever inspiration hits.
And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to pop back for more and I'll bring you more sewing fun soon. Bye now.